This is Fantology.
You may have heard of us.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Fantology. My name is Jake, and I'm here with Josh.
Hi, all.
And today we are continuing our review of To Hold Up the Sky, a collection of short stories by Cixin Liu. We are now covering the story titled The Time Migration. And this one deals with time refugees moving along through time, trying to find an adequate time period to resettle. We're going to be kind of going over the central theme of the story, prose, just the premise itself and characters. So you want to take us away, Josh?
Yeah. This one, I didn't like this one as nearly as much as The Teacher. Just putting it out there right at the beginning. I thought that one, I could have used a little bit more background on these the time immigrants, as they were. Like, I felt like I wasn't really connected to them or to why they were doing what they were doing, and that kind of carried over to my lack of really enthusiasm to find out what ended up happening to them. I felt like the story was just a frame to check out what the future would be like and ideas of what the future is, which is all well and fine. But I think that in order to be a really engaging story, that part needed to be done a little bit better and have a little bit more of emotional connection to it. So those are my overall thoughts about it.
Yeah, that's interesting. If you have read Death's End by the same author, Cixin Liu, this story will seem pretty familiar, right? And I think the weaknesses you pointed out are not really there in Death's End and that version of the story. But I don't know. I didn't really feel like that was a big weakness for me for the short story. To me, the premise itself of you have these refugees out of time, like instead of being outside of their home country, they're outside of their home time and trying to resettle. I thought that was a really interesting idea. And I thought it was pretty plausible in the sense that if there ever were like affordable hibernation technology like that, I could see that being a thing, like people deciding, like a group of people deciding this time just isn't right for us, so we'll just wait for another. And I really liked the social implications of that, of the societies from the time periods they arrive at, some being welcoming, some not being welcoming, deciding like, no, we don't want to take you in. Others more willing to, but just so culturally different that they're not human. I thought that was really cool. It made me think, if someone compared our society today back to the dawn of civilization, how would that be looked upon? Or even like, how did hunter-gatherer societies view, like, that didn't really live near civilization in terms of like settlements and cities? How did they view people who lived in the cities? Like, it must have seemed so foreign and alien to them, in a sense, kind of similar to this one. But
yeah, I mean, those are good readings of it. And I think that you're going to get that with any, look into the future. Yeah. And I think that was handled competently. Do you want to run through a little bit of the different ages that we went to? So the first one was kind of like a war. Like, the quote that stood out to me was "war is economy," and the wars were kind of fought before they were even fought through like simulations and stuff.
Yeah.
And did anything else stand out to you about that one?
I mean, I thought that was interesting. It's kind of like what I'm sure is like a not real historical fact, but people would say, oh, chess came to be because different rulers would play chess instead of going to war. Like, I've
never heard that before.
It's not true at all, but I've heard people say that's how chess came to be. It's kind of like that idea of like, okay, I don't know. And it's really similar to Cold War type stuff, right? Like, the reason it was a Cold War is because, I don't know, you could I guess not the reason there was a Cold War, but an aspect of the Cold War was all these predictions of what would happen if anyone made the first move. And it kind of prevented that. And this is kind of taking that to a step further of deciding, like, we just run the simulation. What would the total fallout be if a war was started? And then just go from there. To that point, I don't think it's really grounded that much in reality, because wars aren't so coldly calculated. There's a lot of passion behind them. And when there's a lot of passion, you're not going to be believing what a simulation says if it doesn't come out to your side, or even if it does, that doesn't mean you're not willing to continue, defending. So,
yeah. And I also struggled to know why they didn't just stay there. It seems like they could have brought a little bit of like empathy back from from the past into the future. I feel like that was the era that they could have done the most good in as time immigrants. And so I kind of wish that they would have stayed there, because I think that they could have had an impact. It seemed like a rushed decision to just like nope out of there,
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. That would have been cool to explore, like bringing better elements from another time into a future time that maybe had better technology, but not as good, like
philosophy
or cultural understanding. Yeah, that would have been cool to explore.
Yeah. Have like I feel like we romanticize the past, but if you were to take like, an 18th century, person who like just, I don't know, I always like to think about people just sitting around in their, after a long, hard day of working on the farm and sitting around and talking to their family and just, being around those that they love and getting the most out of the time with who they've chosen to spend their life with. And if you drop them into our society where we're all plastered to screens and technology and podcasts, like they could probably impart a lot of sage wisdom.
I'm sure they would wholeheartedly approve of podcasts and book reviewing YouTube channels, but maybe not some of the other screen stuff.
Yeah. Anyway,
no, yeah, that would have been a cool thought to explore. One that stands out to me another time period is where they it's kind of like a Ready Player One situation. They figured out how to just live in the internet, basically, or the metaverse.
That's the invisible age.
I think that's what it's called. Yeah.
So they went from the dark age to the lobby age, where everything is too clean, and they didn't want to accept the immigrants.
Yeah, that was weird. That made me think of that SpongeBob episode where Squidward's traveling through time and he travels too far into the future. No. Our listeners will know what I'm talking about.
I'm sure they will. But yeah, the invisible age. Everybody kind of has their own dimension and can do what they want.
I thought that was a cooler look at the ideas of things like Ready Player One or a metaverse in general, of living inside an artificial reality that way. And then if you had full control of it, you can make your reality whatever you want. I wonder how that would really play out, though.
Yeah. What constraints, because you're still going to be constrained by your own mind and by your own set of preconceptions that you're going into it with, right? And then back home, the last one, where humanity destroyed itself, because the reasons given were because at the peak of existence is meaningless, I think is the quote from the story. Yeah. Just
like, I don't know, this is kind of echoed in another story in this collection that I don't know if you've read yet, but just the idea of like, if everything's perfect, like, is that really a society? Like, what is, I don't know. It doesn't really go into much detail. I thought it was kind of poetic that they got to see all this evolution of like civilization and different societies, and then it reverts back to just like a barren earth, not barren earth, but a devoid of civilization.
It's just hard. Yeah, I guess that's just hard for me to believe that all of humanity consciousness, like taken together, would cumulatively decide to end humanity's existence. Like, I feel like they could have. That's when I don't know. I would prefer like they essentially like god tier and then create like another,
Yeah.
civilization that doesn't, that I don't know, some Gnostic idea of what God is, and then that starts over. I feel like that would have been a more interesting way to go with it than just humanity self-destructs. But I don't know.
Yeah. Part of the reason I love reading from Cixin Liu is that culturally it's just such a different perspective than what I'm used to reading. And I wonder if there's some of that there. Like, to me, it seems improbable that a whole, like, humanity as a whole would decide together and like unanimously, we don't need this anymore, we're done. I'm used to stories more like, no, there'd always be like some individuals who are countercultural or just too individualistic to be part of that. And I wonder if, just coming from a different cultural mindset of a more unified, like more based in Confucian values,
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Overall, I'd say like the premise was interesting. I could be just not very deep in my reading, but I didn't really sense like a strong central theme. The prose was fine. Absolutely, like pretty much no character.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of character with
her, the little cyborg
little love
thing.
story. Yeah. But really, like, it wasn't about the characters at all. It was about just the idea of like seeing humanity evolve over thousands of years. But
I'm going a 5.5 out of 10 for this one.
I thought you were doing out of 5. I was like, oh, okay.
No, 5.5 out of 10. I enjoyed it just fine. Like I don't regret reading it, or if people like, I don't think it's a waste of time. It's short. It's sweet. It has some good ideas, but it wasn't gripping. And I think that there's some ways it could have been improved to make it a lot better, but
Yeah. Ratings here at Phantology are kind of like, whose line is it anyways? Where the points don't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think I would say like a 6 out of 10, 6.5. I don't know. I thought the village teacher was so much better in a lot of ways, but I really like the idea of this one. And a 5 seems harsh. I don't know. I'll go with a 6.
5.5. Like a 5 is average to me. Like, it was like an average short story to me. Like, I don't regret reading it, but I don't think I'm going to remember it in a year.
I'll remember the idea of it. It's just hard, especially after reading a book by the same author that has that same idea and part of it in a way done like so much better because it connects to a larger overall story. And I guess that's kind of spoilers, but
I don't know. Remembrance of Earth's Past. I think that there's a spoiler that the series name is a bigger spoiler. Sorry, is a bigger spoiler than what you just said. If we're missing something, you guys, if you feel like we just like totally missed the theme of this, or that we are just saying something totally wrong, jump in the comments below, tell us what we missed, or why we're wrong about this. Or if you have a different reading, tell us what's up. And because we like that conversation to happen. That's why we do this.
So thanks for listening to our review of the Time Migration short story by Cixin Liu, and tune in for more reviews of the stories from To Hold Up the Sky. Thanks, guys.